Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Relentless. I am your host, Elenoa McCabe, and today I am joined by my very first guest at my house, but she's not here at my house. I'm super excited to introduce you guys all to Senie Grant. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you very much.
Hi,
I'm so excited and honored to be here.
I'm super excited for you to be here as well. Go ahead, let's just dive right in. Tell everybody, who are you?
I am a lot of things. I am a daughter, a sister. I'm a lifelong type 1 diabetic. I am a very hard worker. I'm a college student. And mostly, I think I'm someone that wants to leave a lasting impact on the world.
And what would that lasting impact be?
I want to leave a legacy behind that inspires other people to pursue whatever dreams and aspirations they have and not to let anything, hold them back or be an obstacle that stops them from pursuing that.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. So when we first connected on Instagram, I was like, oh, I cannot wait to get her on the show and talk about this
Awesome.
because I do think a lot of your experiences and what you've gone through, like the obstacles that you face, the challenges that you've overcome, a lot of people will be able to resonate with that. So I would love for you to just go ahead and share more about how your diagnoses have shaped your childhood, how you grew up with them, just give us a little bit of background info.
So I was first diagnosed in 2005. I was 4 years old. Some of my earliest childhood memories really are surrounded around that. And growing up with that, it's incredibly difficult. And because I was so young, I had a caretaker following me around at school all the time, and I had to go to the nurse's office all the time, and little things like that definitely ostracized me, even if the other kids didn't know why I had this other stuff going on. They still, didn't want to hang out with me because they're like, who is this weird lady following her around? Like, I don't know. We'll go play with our friends.
Yeah.
Um, that was definitely very hard. Another thing too is living with type 1 diabetes. It's a very unique experience, and it gives you a sense of self and a sense of, self-responsibility that
Hmm.
I have to take care of myself at all times. Like you feel very independent, right? And I was 7 or 8 years old, trying to tell, my teachers, hey, I can eat this with the class, or, let me be part of the ice cream party, or, I can't go run out on the playground because my blood sugar will go low. And I never really felt like I got respected or heard, even though I'm the one living with the condition. It's
Right.
always like the adult knows better. Well, you don't though, because you're not experiencing it the way that I am. So that definitely also led me to have a lot of feelings of like self-doubt,
Hmm.
even to a point of sometimes self-hatred of just, feeling like, why don't I fit in? Am I doing something wrong to make myself ostracized or all that kind of stuff. So it was definitely a very big proponent of my childhood.
Yeah. Was that something that followed you throughout all of school, like elementary school, middle school, high school? Do you feel like it really shaped how you experienced your more formative years?
Most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to summer camp and, I moved between schools and things. And every time that I would set up in a new location, my parents would have me read like a book to the class. It's like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I have. It's not contagious, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So while it comes from a good intentioned place, it also kind of painted a target on my back, where then it gave them something to make fun of me for or something to, bully me for. So it did follow me for a long time. And I could never really, once kids knew that I had diabetes, it's not really something you can like hide, you know? So even when I went to middle school and to high school and I wasn't doing the same things where I'm, have a person following me and I'm not reading to the class and all of that, everyone that I've gone to school with still already knows all of that. So
Right.
it's still, even without me wanting it to, it does follow me everywhere.
Yeah. And I mean, it's hard for me to even really think about that because I know, as a teenager, I just remember so badly, always wanting to fit in. So just kind of knowing, from the jump, you're growing up with these people who already kind of know what you're dealing with and it just keeps going. You don't really have that opportunity to I guess, grow up and like give yourself an identity, if you will. Like that is part of your identity as you grew up.
So something funny about that is in my junior and senior year of high school, my parents bought a different house in a different part of our county, and I was able
Hmm.
to switch schools, and I decided to. When I did that, I no longer wanted to go by my first name. I wanted to be called my middle name, which is Catherine. So I
Hmm.
told people, call me Kat or Catherine. I'm not Senie. I don't know who that is. Like,
Oh,
I
interesting.
basically changed my whole personality when I went to this new school because I saw it as a fresh start of like, I can make new friends. I can, people don't know me as Senie from all these years. And
Hmm.
with a name like Sini, and when you grow up in the same area your whole life, if one person says one thing about you, everybody immediately knows who it is. Because I
Right.
have such a unique name. I'm sure you can understand that too, because Elenoa
Yeah.
is not a very common name.
Yes.
So that's
Definitely.
another thing about it, like following me, is I happen to have a very unique,
Hmm.
presence. So if somebody knows me or knows about me, then immediately they know, who you're talking about.
Right. And then that like picture of like who you are, who they understand you to be is just like, it's just a quick judgment. Yeah. Okay.
When
Yeah.
I, went to this new school and everything and all of that, I essentially changed my whole identity. I wanted to be, fit in, be liked. I was the partier, the drinker, the wild child. Like, I just wanted to be that person because to me, it felt like then people wanted me around.
Hmm.
And that was something I had never experienced before. People never wanted me around. So if that was the way to do it, then okay. And I
Right.
did that for a few years.
And then how did you transition from that into getting into like fitness and nutrition? Cause like I know for me personally, I went through like a party phase in college and then it was like kind of a wake up call where you're like, wait, this isn't actually like who I am or who I want to be. And I'm just like, filling a void. I'm like trying to find meaning in like all these nights out and drinking and whatever. And that's actually how I like fell into fitness was like a breakup and then also like yeah, going through like the party phase and then I was like, okay, I need to do something different. So how did you make that transition?
Mine was a breakup and a party phase, but the opposite way around. So I had changed my
Yeah,
personality, became the partier or whatever, got out of high school and still kind of kept up that same persona through COVID and everything. Got a job, and just started working like a hostessing job. Met
mm,
this guy at the restaurant. We ended up dating for a few years, but when I was at that restaurant and when I was working there, I was Kat. I was not Senie. So I met him
right.
and, expressed myself as a version of myself that wasn't really me. And that's what he was attracted to. So then for the whole duration of our relationship, without me even realizing it, I was being this fake version of myself because I knew it's what he liked and I knew it's what would keep things good. So I ended up moving in with him and, things got pretty serious.
Yeah.
And then he basically asked me to change myself even more. And, just, I don't like the way you do this thing, or I don't like the way you talk, or et cetera, et cetera.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah. So after I had already upped my whole life and moved up there and whatever, then that bomb was dropped on me. So I had to decide I'm either going to stay here and keep being this version of myself that I don't recognize because I'm here now and I'm comfortable and this is what I know,
Right.
or I have to leave. And I decided to leave and I went back home. And funny thing is, too, ever since I left that relationship, I have never introduced myself once as Kat.
Really? Oh my gosh, it's like a end of an era. Like you just closed the book on that.
Pretty much because it
Yeah.
was such a stark realization that, like, this isn't me. Like, this isn't, what am I doing? So it's never felt comfortable to me again to be like, hi, I'm Kat.
Right. Oh, interesting. I love that. So going through that and also like managing with like your type 1 and going through basically like a whole identity shift and then back like moving back in with your parents, what was that like? Because I have a lot of friends who have kind of had to go through that as well, like where they take the leap, they move out, they move in with a partner, and then all of a sudden like they have to go back home. And I know what they've expressed to me, but like what was that experience like for you?
Definitely tough. Because like I said earlier, I have a very high sense of, self-responsibility and independence.
Yeah.
So I very much do appreciate my independence and my isolation. And when you're an adult kid living with your adult parents, it's a very hard line to toe of like, yes, you're still my child, and there's a certain dynamic there, but you are an adult. You work a full-time
Hmm.
job, you pay your own bills. Like there's a certain level of respect the other way too that kind of
Yeah.
has to be maintained. So that's been interesting to navigate. But I love my parents. My mom is a figure competitor. She's been a bodybuilder for about
Really?
10 years. Yeah. So
I
I have
love
an
that.
amazing home gym here that I can
Hmm.
use, cardio machines, all of that. So I love being here for, that reason and just being with
Hmm.
them in general. It's very
Was
nice.
did she introduce you then, like into bodybuilding, or how did you start deciding that you maybe wanted to compete?
So when I was in high school, when I switched over my junior and senior year, I joined the weightlifting team at my new high school. I didn't even know that we had one at my old high school. It was just very small. But when
Yeah.
I had joined this new school, they were promoting it. I saw, posters, stuff like that. So I decided to go to the club, see what was going on, whatever. Got myself into Olympic weightlifting. So my first real experience with weightlifting was like clean and jerk, snatch, bench, squat, like love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I did that for a couple years, and then after I graduated, I wasn't really in the gym too much on my own. I would work out here and just do,
Mm.
clean and jerks on my own, whatever, do a little thing here and there, but I was never really that consistent. And then when I got into the relationship that I was just in previously, he actually had gotten me to go to the gym, a little bit. And I was very nervous at first. I didn't want to go. I would be attached to him like this the whole time because I'm like,
Right.
I don't know what's going on here. But, over time, I kind of got more comfortable with it, more confident in it, all of that. And I did start listening to my mom's advice, getting her to give me
Mm.
form tips and little things like that. Her and I have worked out together. So it was a very slow and gradual progression. And then when the
Mm.
relationship ended, I sent myself into the gym. I was there 6 days a
Yeah.
week, training nonstop. Like that was where I got everything out.
Yeah.
So. Yep. And
I love
then
that.
that ended in September, and I hired my coach for my prep in December. So it
Oh
was
wow.
those three
Okay.
months I kind of put the pedal to the metal, and then I decided, what am I going to do with this?
Mm.
So
And it's nice to set your sights on like a goal. Like I think that's why we all really love competing is it does give you like a timeline. Like it gives you, okay, cool, I'm going to do this. I'm going to achieve this goal in X amount of time. And having that fire lit underneath you, like it's so helpful.
I feel like this prep too, it meant a lot more for me than just getting up on stage. It was like reclaiming myself. I, wasn't comfortable with my diabetes. I wasn't comfortable in my body. I felt like I, was a victim. I was trapped in all the crap that I had to deal with. And, it very much, I think for me, the reason I decided to go for it so heavily is because a part of me knew that going through that would help me find myself again.
Yeah. That's actually, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like that is incredibly powerful. It's not just, hey, I'm going to compete for the fun of it. Like you have such a deep underlying meaning behind why you're doing what you're doing. So, how was that prep experience? Do you feel like you achieved the goal that you wanted to achieve?
Yes, I'll say yes. There are definitely things like I don't think my peak went 100% perfect. Like there were parts of it that I'm obviously next time I know I'll do better. But all
Yes.
in all, there was probably 1,000 times in prep where I had told myself like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm made for
Hmm.
this. Like I don't know if my body can handle this. Like there were so many times that I had questioned myself.
What were some of those times? Like, what were some of the challenges that you felt like really pushed you to ask yourself, like, why the heck am I doing this?
So we actually, 3 weeks out from my show, our
Hmm.
family had a traumatic experience happen. And it was really that moment that kind of, made me reflect and decide, like, you've been doing this for 5.5 months now. So you're
Hmm.
either going to push it through and do it like you said you're going to do, or you're not. And you know that when you look back, if you don't do it, you're going to be disappointed in yourself. So that was definitely a very like revealing moment for me.
Hmm.
And just in general, I think really what it was, the cardio machine. Me and the cardio machine, my thoughts just running for an hour straight. There are so
Yeah,
many times that I was full on in tears on the cardio machine because it really does just bring that emotion out of you, you know?
it
And I'm
does.
sitting there doing the cardio and I'm picturing myself on stage and I'm thinking about like, I'm gonna get there, I'm gonna do it. And it just, that alone really just drove me every day.
It does. I love that you said that. That's something that I try to tell people as well is like contest prep is a mirror and it is going to show you levels within yourself that you didn't even know were there. It's going to show you your strengths, your weaknesses. There's going to be triggers. Like there's contest prep pushes you and at the end of the day it's your choice. You're choosing to do it and so you have to continue to choose it every day. And I think that's why so many of us do love it so much because even in those moments when you're crying on the stairmaster like and you're like why am I doing this? Like I don't want to. I want to leave. Like I want to just give up and stop and then you just remember like okay, yeah, this was my why. Like this is why I'm doing it and I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. And it builds so much mental resilience, which is I mean, personally, that is why I love it. But every prep is so different. Like you always think like, oh, this prep will be like I've done it before. It'll be easier, and it never is. Like there's just so much to uncover every time. Yeah. So I definitely resonate with that a lot. And I'm glad that you said that because I think a lot of people listening are going to realize that as well. That like those moments when you are about to break down or you are about to quit and you decide to keep going, those are the moments that matter. And that is what at the end of your journey, like when you step on stage, that's what's going to make you the most proud is you know that you didn't give up.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. And I think that's really what's very empowering about it too.
Speaking about like competing with your chronic illnesses or like with chronic illnesses in general because I do have some athletes right now under me who have like POTS or they have endometriosis and so there I know that there are a lot of competitors out there that do have illnesses that make them wonder like can I even do this. Like one of my girls from this past year when she first signed on with me she was like I don't know if I can do cardio, like I don't know if my heart is strong enough to do it. And I was like, you know what, like let's just take it slow, take it easy, but that's what we're here for and let's do it. And she got on stage and she was like the amount of confidence that she has gained from being able to put herself through that experience and not allow her self-doubt or not allow perceived like challenges to stop her without trying. She's just such a different person now and it's like beautiful to see. Like it is. Yeah, exactly. So how does managing your type 1 diabetes influence training and nutrition?
Okay. So for me, I really feel like most of the time, I have a similar approach to any other athlete, right? I have
Mhm.
my diet, I have my training schedule, I have my cardio, I have all the boxes that I have to tick. The thing is, ticking those boxes is a lot harder for me to do, whether I'm in or out of prep.
Mhm.
In prep, it's a lot more difficult because the time constraints are so narrow, and you have to do so many things with only a 24-hour window in the day.
Yes.
So, as one example, like glucose, when you have a low blood sugar as a type 1 diabetic, glucose carbs is the treatment. It's the only way to fix that problem. And when you're deep in prep and you don't have any carbs in your diet, you essentially have to go over and you have to, give up. I don't want to say give up, but you have to, sacrifice having perfect macros that day in order to
Mhm.
meet that demand. And there are times where I couldn't do my cardio in the morning because I woke up and my blood sugar was already low. And
Right.
I have to do my cardio, get ready for work, and then go work an 8-hour job. So I can't even sit there and wait half an hour for my blood sugar to come back up to then go hop on the cardio machine. So there are definitely
Right.
instances like that that were very, very hard for me. But I had to have the mental resilience of saying, like, tomorrow will be a different day. Like, we can make up the cardio another time. Like, your health is the most important thing.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. So I have a question about specifically like carbs and the other macros. If you had to go over on carbs, would it be feasible to pull from the other macros or how did that work like with you and your coach?
yes. So I did have, even at the end of my prep, about 20 to 25 grams of carbs a day as a little
Okay.
bit of a reservoir. And it was
Got
more
it.
towards my pre-workout and post-workout, which is at the end of my day. So if I have a low blood sugar during the day that I need to treat, I have that little reservoir that I can kind of take up. And then I just have to be very careful the rest of the day. So that was kind of how we navigated that. And there are instances, of
Yeah.
course, where I still had a extreme low or something like that. And those days I just kind of say, it is what it is, and we ticked every other box, so we'll be okay.
Right. You just kind of have to check. You just have to let it go. It is what it is.
And the
Okay.
big thing too is not letting that defeat you or be like, oh, well, then I can't do it. You
Yes.
did everything else. Like you have to look at the full picture instead of just looking at this one little thing, you know?
Right. Yeah. So I really love that you say that as well, because I've been having that conversation a lot with other coaches and athletes around how sometimes we get so hyper fixated on things like needing to be quote unquote perfect. And then it's like, oh, well, if you missed on one variable, it's all over. Like you messed up, it's done. And I think just hearing you say that, it's so refreshing and it's so helpful because like genuinely some of the top coaches in the world who I've talked to who coach Olympians, like they don't tell their Olympians you need to have 110 grams of chicken breast at 7 p.m. They tell them, hey, get 30 grams of protein in for your last meal. And it's not specific that like, oh, you have to do this so perfectly. It's they're able to say like you need this amount of protein. However you get that is up to you because you know your body best. So like just having that mental flexibility, like understanding that like yes, I'm getting everything done that I need to, and also it doesn't have to be perfection. I really love hearing you say that.
I did. I am still a perfectionist at heart with so many things, but prep definitely has taught me that, striving for perfection is just going to drain you even further. Like it will
Right.
drain your mental energy, and then setting those high expectations and those high demands will only leave you feeling, disappointed because you're setting such a high bar that then you're never meeting. So set a realistic bar, and then guess what? You're an overachiever. You did a great job.
Right.
Like it gives you a better sense of self-confidence.
Yes. And that's, I love that too. That's a very like important distinction to make because I'm not saying like don't strive to do your best. Like, don't be too lax with your protocols that you're actually not hitting them. It's more so, like you said, be realistic with your expectations and do your absolute best to hit everything you can. But if for some reason, like if there's a health reason or I don't know. There's been times when like I missed my steps or oops, I didn't drink like 20 ounces of water or whatever it was before I went to bed. Stressing out about that one thing is going to be worse than just being like, ding, okay, I missed that yesterday, not going to miss it today. Like just you have to accept it, move on, do your best, show up better the next day, whatever it is. Cause it's the
Gotta
same
be
thing with like
relentless.
yes, exactly. You have to be relentless.
It's
Oh
true
my gosh.
though.
It is. It's so true. So I want to kind of ask also, like, when you think back on, I guess, the prep, before the prep, after your show, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned?
That's a great question. Gosh, that it like floods me with so many thoughts. I would say probably the biggest lesson is just like knowing yourself and staying true to yourself, like having that self-confidence of like, even if I think I can't do this thing, I'm gonna do it anyways. Like I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
stick to my guns. I'm gonna prove myself. It helped remind me of who I am at my core, which is something that I felt like I needed. Um, and I think prep in itself, if you allow it to be, really is like just a journey of self-development physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever you really want it to be. So I think taking that opportunity to try to, develop in the best way possible, even in those really the hardest moments, that's the ones where you can reflect the most. And it shows you the most of what you need to know. So
Right.
I think that's probably my biggest lesson is like really take each day for the lesson that it gives and like take it all slowly, experience it all. So
Yeah. I think that's amazing. Does it? That's one of the biggest takeaways for me as well. And that's why I keep coming back to it for sure. So, what do you wish that you would have known before competing?
The number one thing that I wish I would have known before I started my prep is that it can be very isolating. Like when you have all those time constraints and you have a kind of lifestyle that people don't really understand, it can be
Yeah.
incredibly isolating. And for me, with endometriosis, I can have like physical exhaustion a lot.
Hmm.
It's doctors say that it can be to the point of like 72 hours without sleep. Like that's the
Yeah.
level of exhaustion it feels like. So, with that and prep, I was sacrificing most of the rest of my life just to pursue prep because I already worked two jobs. I was doing online school, and then I have bodybuilding prep, which is cardio and posing and strength training and getting rest and steps and all of that in. So, I really did isolate myself pretty hard so that I could accomplish that goal. And looking back, I probably wish I would have had at least a handful of people that were always there in my corner, knew exactly what was going on, like they were there no matter what.
Hmm.
And I have like my parents, of course, they're there for me, but it's definitely something that I'm going to look for before I start my next prep, is to have that solid community and foundation.
Yeah. How do you want to go about that? Like I feel like we connected on Instagram and that's kind of where I started. Like building community was definitely online. Is that where you're going? Yeah. So Instagram.
Yeah, I use my Instagram a lot. I have
Hmm.
two. One is my,
Yeah.
personal life, blah, 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 that stuff. But I have one specifically for type 1 diabetes, endo, bodybuilding, like all of that little niche that is specific to me. And
Hmm.
I try very hard to find and seek out people that line up with what I'm looking to find. And at
Yeah.
my regional show that I did this year too, I met so many other incredible women that were all so kind, so supportive. I followed all of them on Instagram. So,
I love that. That's one of the reasons why I also like just the community and the people that you meet backstage on show day. Like those girls are your girls because you'll see them at show day like on a local stage, and then like a year from now you're gonna see them on the local or on the national stage, and then you might go pro with like a handful of them, and then you see them on the pro circuit, and it's so special. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Hmm. So as far as your Instagram presence with because you said you have two pages, are you aiming to, I guess, use one of them as like a brand? Like are you hoping to start your own business or what's the goal with Okay, yeah, tell us more about that.
eventually, what I would love to do is to coach other type 1 diabetics to manage their A1C levels. And then once
Hmm.
they have their A1C levels at a point where, they're stable, then they can pursue anything they want. If that's a
Yeah.
high rocks, if it's a marathon, if it's bodybuilding, whatever it is, I'm
W-
totally
Wait, do you
there.
do you're familiar with High Rocks? Someone was just telling me about it yesterday. What is it? What is High Rocks?
So I am not like super familiar with it. I just know people that do it.
Same. Like I'm just like, is it hybrid?
Yeah, it's like a very intense cardio like challenge. You have to do like physical tasks and things.
So
Kind
to
of like
me
an
it's almost
obstacle
like
course, but not like running through the whole thing. Yeah.
right. Like I was like it's almost like functional CrossFit, like running all combined. Yeah.
It's like a
Interesting.
fitness obstacle
Okay.
course. That's how I feel about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not tried it, but I know that it's like a thing, like it's a cool thing to do right now. So I was just curious. But I forget what we were talking about before that. I just got so distracted.
So, if that is something that one of my clients wants to do as a
Hmm.
type 1 diabetic, my first goal is to get their A1C levels managed and get that down, get to a good base point, and
Hmm.
then pursue whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah. How I guess you can go as high level or as detailed as you want, but like, how would you start doing that? Is it lifestyle behavior modifications? Is it like strictly diet modifications, supplements?
So my first thing would probably be figuring out. So the biggest thing is also how you treat your diabetes. I
Hmm.
use an insulin pump, a glucose monitor, and I have a software program that combines the two. So mine is
Okay.
very high tech, very well monitored. That's a big reason why I have such a good A1C. But
Yeah.
some people use multiple daily injections, or they don't have a glucose monitor and they're finger pricking 10 times a day, those kind of things. So
Wow.
that would be the first thing, is really figuring out what that is and getting a program built for that individual client that says, okay,
Mhm.
well, this is what you have. This is where your blood sugar levels are. Here's what we can change. Because it can be a number of things. You can
Okay.
change your, even just going for, a walk every day, or
Mhm.
including more complex carbs and fats in your diet. Little things like that can help stabilize your blood sugar throughout the day so it's not skyrocketing up and down all the time. So that would probably be my first approach, is
Mhm.
more of a, I would say probably more of that would be considered lifestyle than just diet, because it would
Right.
just be a recommendation of, you could change this insulin setting, or you could, implement this in this part of the day. And it's more of a, diabetes is a trial and error, always, every day, for every person. Even I've had it 20 years and I still do trial and error sometimes.
Right.
So I would really just want to be the sounding board for someone else to do that trial and error with. When they're
Y-
not comfortable with it, they're not confident yet to do that. They're not, they're like, my doctor says I can't. My doctor hasn't told me what to do with my insulin in
Yeah.
5 years. So,
Right. And I think that that is the impact that you're looking to make. Like that's kind of what we touched on in the beginning is like you want to help people and use your experience and be able to help and guide them so that they don't have to go through life like wondering what's wrong with me or what's going on with me and just not really have that understanding. So, okay, I think that is amazing and I love that. What
And we get one life and one body to
mhm,
live it in. So as much as you can be, upset or frustrated or whatever about whatever condition it is that you have, it's the only body that you have, and it's probably never going to go away. Type 1 diabetes has no cure, and I happen to be alive at a time that they still don't have that cure. But I have two decisions to make. I can either live with that as my reality and just accept that, okay, well, there's no cure and it is what it is, and you
right.
know, just leave it where it is. Or you can say, you know, I'm going to do whatever I can in spite of that. And I'm gonna, especially being raised with it and having it my whole life, I have constantly heard people say what I can't do and what I can't accomplish, and oh, you're not supposed to do that, or, et cetera, et cetera. I'm gonna die young.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna have kids. People have said all kinds of terrible things to me.
Oh wow.
But yeah. So I really feel like it's a lot of what I do is in spite of that, in the face of that, like to be
Right.
loud and show and, scream from the rooftops, like, no, I can and I will, and I want everyone else to do it too.
Yeah. That I cannot believe number one that people have said that to you. Do you feel like those, or I guess what are like the most common misconceptions that you face and what are the things that you're doing to dispel them? I know that you are loud in your presence on Instagram, which I think is amazing. Um,
Right. Thank you.
you're welcome. So what are, yeah, what, I guess talk to us about like what are some of the misconceptions and how do you work to dispel them?
So the most common misconceptions for type 1 diabetes is that it gets confused with type 2 diabetes a lot of the time. And they're actually two very different conditions that both just have to do with the pancreas. So they both got the term diabetes, even though they're two very different things in the body. So type 1 diabetes, which is what I have, is an autoimmune disorder. So when I was 4, I got very sick. My body attacked itself and it killed my insulin producing cells. So for the rest of my life, my body will never make any insulin on its own again. That's how that happens. Type 2
Mhm.
diabetes is insulin resistance. So your body still produces insulin. It may even try to overproduce insulin to make up for whatever's going on, but for some reason, your body can't utilize it to break down the carbohydrates in the way that you need it to, or it can't do it quickly enough. And that can be from a sedentary lifestyle, it can be from a thyroid condition, it can be from other hormonal disorders. And I think, in general, type 2 diabetes gets a lot of slack too for just being, oh, like the fat people disease, lazy people disease. No,
Mm-hmm.
no, 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 no. Because insulin is an endocrine hormone. So if your other endocrine hormones are dysregulated, to me, that says that could be a huge reason why you have insulin resistance. It's not that, you're not going for a run every day or you're not eating a salad every day or no.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that kind of idea. And then for me, because of the confusion with type 2 diabetes, I get some splashback of that where people tell me, well, oh, you're not supposed to be eating carbs and,
Right.
you're too skinny to be diabetic. You shouldn't have that.
What?
You're too young to have diabetes. And I, with a smile on my face, will
Yeah.
tell people, I believe you're talking about type 2 diabetes. And there are
Right.
actually four different kinds of diabetes. There's type 1 and 2, which are the two most common. There's
Mm.
gestational diabetes, which is, when you drink the little sugar drink when you're pregnant and they test your sugar levels. Some people can get diabetes only throughout their pregnancy, where their insulin just is not effective in their body. So it's
Really?
it's a very, yeah, it's a very interesting, very niche form of diabetes. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's why we do the glucose test for any pregnant woman, because if you
Mm.
have that, you need to know. And then the fourth kind is LADA, which is a late adult diagnosis. My dad was diagnosed at my age now, which is 23,
Mm.
which is crazy to me. He lived a whole full up to his young adult life, and then everything changed like that.
Right. I had a friend in college that happened to him our freshman year. He like we were just all of a sudden he was like, "Yeah, I just got it." And we were all confused. We were like, "Wait, can you drink?" We're like, what does that mean?" And he was just like, "Yeah."
Well, and there's
Yeah.
even there's even misconceptions like from my doctors. So like
Yeah,
I went to my
right.
endocrinologist not too long ago and I showed her my A1C and it was a 6, which means an average blood sugar of about 120, which is pretty good for a type 1 diabetic. So she looks at me on the phone and she goes, "So you're eating low carb, right?" And I was like, "No, I eat about 300 grams of carbs a day." And her face just fell. She was like, "Huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like I totally eat carbs. I eat whatever I want. I drink. You know, it's
Yeah, I
another
live a
thing. Like,
life.
yeah, I don't let diabetes be a limitation because like you can very easily let it be if you don't take care of it and you're not responsible with it. But if you want certain things out of life and you want to have those joys in life, to me, it's worth it. It's worth being a hard ass on my management and always having tight control because I want to go out and do anything I want to do. But
Hmm.
for people that don't want to have to deal with constantly checking their phone and their blood sugar and doing bolusing, whatever, then maybe that kind of lifestyle works for you. Eating low carb and, doing those kinds of things. For me,
Right.
it's not.
Like there's a trade-off, and to you it's worth the extra effort and like the little bit of time and energy so that you can live a life that you want. Ah,
Yeah,
I love that.
exactly. And that's why I want to inspire other people to do that. Because a lot
Mm,
of type 1, type 2 diabetics, they think, well, this diagnosis is it's a death sentence for,
right.
me living a full life. It's really not. It's just an added responsibility that you have to have. So,
Yeah, and it sounds like from the beginning of our conversation too, like you I how do I phrase this? It's like you grew up really fast. Like you had to take on like a certain level of responsibility as a 4, 5, 6 year old that most don't. And I
yeah.
think that having that level of responsibility, like it gave you just a sense of like independence and autonomy that now you're able to like you're able to live the life that you want because you know how important it is to have personal responsibility because you had to like when you were young.
Yep. And I've been on both sides of the equation where I
Mm-hmm.
have lived that lifestyle and didn't take care of my diabetes, didn't really care about it. And I was like 95 pounds. I slept all day long. I could hardly keep food down. I looked like a skeleton. Um, and now I'm on the opposite side of that where I
Yeah.
am taking care of my diabetes. But because of that, everything else about my life has changed. Like I'm healthy again. I have energy again. I have memories again. I could not make memories because my body was so in survival mode. There's a period of my life that I remember almost nothing.
Wow. Do you think that's linked to like you were saying like stress? Because I know that that happens with trauma, like where if people are like in fight or flight, or if they go through something like very traumatic, they literally can't make memories. Like their brain just refuses to store any information.
I, for a while, I want to say probably right around COVID, right after COVID,
Mm-hmm.
I was putting my body through a lot of strain. I suffered with something called diabulimia, which is a diabetes related eating disorder. So
Mm-hmm.
it basically means that you still eat a normal diet, you still live, quote unquote, a normal life as someone without diabetes would, and you don't give yourself any insulin besides what is absolutely necessary for survival. So my pump that I wear, it's constantly, even this whole time we're talking, it's constantly giving me tiny little micro doses of insulin just to keep me steady.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have to, when you're eating carbs, drinking things, you're supposed to give an additional bolus of insulin to cover that when your body starts breaking that down. So what I was doing is eating normal meals, going out and drinking with my friends, et cetera, et cetera. And I wasn't giving myself any additional insulin besides those little tiny microdoses. So I was still surviving, but I
Mm-hmm.
was in no way living at all. I At one point, I threw up black and I had to get an endoscopy done.
Oh wow.
Um, mhm. And like I said, I was about 95 pounds. I could hardly fit in any of my clothes. And something I find really strange about that too is the time in my life where I was at the least physical healthy is the time when I received the most positive comments from other people on how good I looked, on what's your
Mm-hmm.
workout routine, what's your diet like? Like you look amazing. To me, when I look back at that, like I look sick. Like I don't
Yeah.
recognize myself. Yeah, and it's crazy to think that that's what other people like, and they were encouraging it almost, because I'm getting that feedback and I'm thinking, oh, well, this is good then. I should be doing this. This
Right.
gets me what I want. So I did that for a few years.
I before our conversation, I had never heard of that um, specific ED. What like where did it? I guess where did it originate? Like how did it come? Is it in the DSM or is it like relatively
I
new?
don't know. It's
Okay.
specifically related to type 1 diabetes because it has to do
Okay.
with the insulin dosage. So I don't know
Right.
if it's in the DSM, but I do know that it's
It's
common
like
within like endocrinology. Like
right. Like
we
it's very
endocrinologists know.
specific.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's
Huh.
something that doesn't really get talked about by a lot of diabetics
Yeah.
either. So I'm very glad to at least shed a little bit of light on it. And it is something that I went through and experienced. So if any of you out there listening are someone that, knows somebody that's gone through this or you're going through this, there is another side to it. There
Hmm.
is, and you can absolutely get healthier.
Was that like a way just of like exercising control? Like, is that where it came from? Or I guess how, where did you feel like it stemmed from? It was right around COVID or right after? Was it?
I think it really was me just completely giving up on taking care of my diabetes. For a
Mhm.
lot of my teenage years, I had okay control. It was decent. It wasn't great. Um, and my A1C kept climbing and climbing. And at one point, one of my endocrinologists that I used to go to was the one that told me, like, you're not going to have kids and you're going to lose your limbs, you're going to lose your eyesight. Like, it's not going to be good for you because prolonged high blood
Mhm.
sugar like that, it's damaging to your organs. It is.
Mhm.
So over time, if you don't get that under control, you are, I mean, taking years off of your life. So, um, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, so I really think that me starting down that path with diabulimia was me kind of just saying, okay, well, I'm done. I'm not taking care of my diabetes anymore. Like, I don't care what
Mhm.
happens to me at this point. I've tried all my teenage years. I tried and it wasn't good enough. And, now my doctor's saying all this stuff. So, whatever. If that's what's going to happen to me, then I'm just going to let it happen. And it
Yeah.
was kind of just me taking a stand against having to take care of it every day of my life.
So going from that extreme, how did you swing into, or how did you end up, I guess, feeling like hopeful again, or feeling like, you know what, no, I'm actually in control and I can actually do this.
Right. So, when I had started down that path with my ED and everything, it was about maybe 8 or 9 months before I had started the relationship that I had gotten into.
Hmm.
So within that relationship, over time, I was able to like start to develop a healthier relationship with food. I had someone else around me all the time that was like, "Hey, you need to give insulin for that," or like, "Hey, are you okay? What's your blood sugar? You seem cranky. Like, what's going on?" So that a little bit out of a sense of just not wanting to hear it all the time, I was like, "Let me just take care of it. Let me just whatever. It's fine."
Right.
But it actually did condition me again to start taking care of it more myself. And then once I
Hmm.
started doing that and I started realizing, like, oh, I'm putting weight back on, I look healthier, I feel healthier, that was what kind of helped me. And then that's actually why he got me into the gym as well,
Hmm.
because it was a better way to kind of, okay, well, you're eating more, but you don't want to, you know, I was insecure about gaining too much weight. So that's why I started going into the gym. And then, yeah, from there, it was very gradual.
Yeah. And then from there, why did you specifically choose bodybuilding?
It's a great question. I don't know. I don't
That's
really know.
totally, yeah, that's totally okay.
Yep. I wasn't quite happy with Olympic lifting in the same way.
Hmm.
Like I enjoyed doing the lifts, but I didn't enjoy the training style. I wanted to do something that was more bodybuilding style, where there's more reps and more exercises that you're doing, and it's a little bit more in depth each time you go. It's not just cut and dry. You go in, you do your things, you leave. Like there's a little bit more flexibility with it. You can do different
Right.
variations of movements, and you can, well, my shoulder is hurting me. Let me try this exercise instead today. Like on an Olympic training, if you're doing clean and jerk, you're doing clean and jerk. And if you're doing snatch, it's the same movement. So
Yeah.
if you're, something's injured, that's it, you're done for the day. But with bodybuilding, you have that kind of freedom to say like, oh, well, I guess I'll work out this today, or, maybe I'll try this out or do this thing instead. So,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's totally natural. Also, like, I will say, when I started lifting as well, like when I got into the gym, I was doing more of those compound lifts. Like, I loved benching because I really liked feeling strong. And then when I started realizing that, like, oh, I can build a body like that I actually really like I can put muscle on in areas that like I want to put muscle on and like create a body shape that I like. Then I started going
right.
towards bodybuilding. But I do think a lot of us, like especially as women, like we go into the gym and we are a little bit intimidated. I still get intimidated. I'll go to like a new city and like go check out a new gym and I'm like I feel like a newbie. I'm like I don't know what's going on. I don't know these machines. I don't know what I'm doing. But I think that there is a draw to like getting into at least resistance training, weightlifting. A lot of us do go towards bodybuilding, but there's something powerful about feeling strong and then realizing that like you do have control over what your body looks like, how it performs, how it feels, and like you can work on that every day. Like you can go into the gym every day and essentially better yourself in some way.
Exactly. Yep. I love that. I think that's beautifully said. And I totally agree.
Yeah. So I want to step into like the mindset piece because I think that I've really enjoyed like hearing your perspective and your mindset around a lot of like just the mental barriers. Um, and I know we talked about like your journey when you were young. What are some of your biggest mindset tips? Like, what are things that you tell people when they ask about strengthening their mindsets?
Mm. Fight back against the voice in your head. Like whenever you have a self-doubting thought or, a fleeting moment or something where you hear that voice that's the pessimist, the critic, whatever, stop in that moment, hold it, and try to figure out where it came from. Because as soon as you can figure out where that actually comes from, then you can understand, well, okay, that's not me talking. That's not
Mm-hmm.
actually, my heart, because my heart knows I want this and I'm determined to do this thing. So the fact that this little voice in my head is saying, well, no, you can't, or, XYZ, I think a really important thing is to just sit with it in that moment and try to think about where it comes from. Because
Right.
a lot of times it's, a friend, a teacher, a parent, something, and they may not even mean it in the way that it holds on with you, but our bodies do hold on to that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that that's great. That's such a beautiful tip. That's literally something that I say all the time to my athletes as well. So I think that's extremely important. How do you personally stay motivated or stay positive despite your health challenges?
I wouldn't say necessarily that I stay positive, but I do stay motivated. There are times where I feel defeated and exhausted, and I wish that I could wake up tomorrow and have a working pancreas. But it's just not the reality for me, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So what I really try to remind myself is that like everything that I'm doing is to better myself. Even if it doesn't feel like it right now, even if it feels like I'm doing worse by getting up and going to work out because I just want to lay in bed and whatever. I know that I am doing it to better myself.
Mm-hmm.
And like same thing with I go to therapy. I do not like
Ooh.
going to talk to my therapist. I get so anxious every time, but I know I need it because I know if I'm anxious to go and talk, then there's something that I'm holding on to that I need to talk about.
Yep.
So it's another one of those things.
Shout out therapy.
Yes,
I
seriously.
I'm the same way. Yeah, when I would go to therapy, I would literally be like shaking before my appointment because I was like, I don't want to talk about it. And then they'd be like, "How are you?" And I would start crying. I'd be like, "I'm fine."
Pretty
But I'm
much.
not fine. Yeah.
How are you should not be such a loaded question.
Literally, I know. Sometimes like one misplaced "How are you?" and I break down. I'm like, "Oh, okay." Clearly I'm great. But
I'm
yeah.
totally the same way, especially in prep.
Oh my gosh, I know. And that's
And
the
people
thing
mean it
too.
so well intentioned.
Yes, that's 100%. Like they're just like, "Oh no, what did I say? What did I do?" And I'm like, "No, it's not you. Like it's me, it's prep. It's like how are you is just too big of a question right now."
Right? It's just 3 words, but it's very powerful.
Hmm. Hmm. So I love that you mentioned therapy because I'm such a big proponent of that as well, like taking care of your mental health, having somebody that you can go to where you can just freely speak and not have to think about or worry like are they going to judge me? Yes. Or like, like friends know a lot more context. So it's hard sometimes if there's like a certain situation or a certain feeling that you want to talk about, but your friends, like they're so well intentioned, but they have their own biases, their own perspective, and they know you. So they'll put it in a certain context. And I think having a therapist, having somebody that you can go to, that you can lean on is just, it's so important, especially in the bodybuilding space. Like, bodybuilding as a sport, it attracts a certain kind of person. Not that everybody's like this, but like we are type A, like we are neurotic. We do enjoy the structure and the
Right.
routine and like that
The
kind of
discipline.
personality. Yes, exactly. And like that kind of personality also tends to have certain aspects that we need to be okay with like going to other people and talking about. And therapy is a great route for that. So
A
I
lot of us are perfectionists.
yes.
So that mindset is very hard to live in alone because there's no one else
Mhm.
around you that's telling you like, "Hey, it's good enough. I promise you it's good enough."
Yes. Yes. Ah, I love that. Is there is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to talk about?
There was a question you had asked about like my what I want my devices to show on stage, like what I want that message to send.
Yes.
Um, so the reason why I could very easily choose not to wear my devices and just take them off for the day, do injections and completely hide it away.
Mhm.
But for me, diabetes is my why. It's the entire reason why I've gotten, so deeply into bodybuilding, why I love it so much, why I want to get up on the stage again, because like I want to be that representation for other type 1 diabetics. And even if you don't want to become an athlete, just seeing someone in our community doing things like that, it's incredibly empowering and motivating and inspiring. And, as someone that's had a lot of low points with my diabetes, I know that seeing things like that pulls me back up
Mhm.
because how can I be a victim to my type 1 diabetes and you have the same exact thing I do and you're thriving? Something is not making sense there. And the
Right.
missing link is you, you know? You have to
Yeah.
want to put the work in and want to be better and want to chase those things. So I want to show other people to do that.
That is incredible. That reminds me of the like really popular like what is it story about how people thought that you couldn't run a 5 minute mile. Like nobody had done it yet. You didn't see it. So people were like, oh, it's impossible. And it's like, it's almost the same sort of thing. Like you going up there and embracing that, like, this is part of you and your journey and your why. It is empowering. It is inspiring. And it allows people to see what is possible for them. I think that's very special. When you were telling that story, I was like, oh my gosh, it's to me that's what it reminded me of. I was like, it's literally leading by example and showing people that it is possible for them.
Exactly. Yep. It's like my device, especially because I've had it for almost my whole life, it
Mhm.
is like ingrained into me. It's a part of me. Even if it's a piece of me that's detachable, it is something that is part of my representation and my expression. I wear them openly on my arms and my legs. I love when people walk up to me and ask, like, "Oh, what's that thing? What are you wearing? Like, is that a pump? Is that a CGM?" I love those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
So for me not to wear it on stage, I feel like wouldn't be true to myself. I would be just trying to fit in with all the other competitors and, I don't want to draw any attention to myself. No, I do. The whole reason I'm here is because I want attention to be drawn to the fact that I'm here with everybody else with an autoimmune disorder, and that's hard to do.
Yep.
Yep.
That
And
is
I'm very proud of
incredible.
myself for doing it.
You should be. Yeah, as you should be. I think that is incredible. And I love that that is what you stand for and that's what you represent. And you are inspiring. You're
Thank
inspiring and
you.
motivating, and you are going to have such a big impact. So I'm very
Thank you
excited.
very much. I
You're so
appreciate
welcome.
that. I very much hope to. That's my goal.
You already are. You already are. I can tell you that. I'm very thankful that we were able to connect and record and just get you out there. You're so articulate. I could listen to you speak all
Thank
day.
you.
You're
Wow, I
welcome.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm fumbling over my words here.
No, no, you've done a great job for, you said this was your first podcast ever, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I could not tell. You did a great job. And I've loved our conversation. I think if we're both happy, I'll go ahead and wrap it up for now, but we can talk about maybe if you want to come on in the future again, I'd love to have you.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Cool. So tell everybody before you go, where can they find you?
So, my Instagram page is Senie Bikini. So, Senie Bikini. And then I have a Reddit platform as well with the same username where I post on Bikini Talk. I'm on the Type 1 Diabetes forums. So, I'm very active on there as well.
Perfect. And then if people have questions or want to reach out to you, they can find you on Instagram. Is that the best way? Yeah.
Yes, that'd be
Okay.
perfect. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yay. Well, thank you so much, Senie. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. As always, please like, share, subscribe, send to a friend. Everything that you guys do, I'm so grateful for. And until next time, we'll catch you on the next episode. Stay relentless.